WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
And good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. My name's John Paul, the Car Doctor, here to help you with your car problems on this beautiful Sunday morning. Hope you got out and enjoyed it. I hope you went to the Plymouth Waterfront Festival yesterday. I was there at the WATD booth from probably 3:30 to 6 o'clock and met a lot of nice people. And while I was there, on the way down, and I felt like I parked a mile away because there was like 15,000 people at this event and hundreds of vendors. But as I was walking there was the end of a car show. There was a local car club was there, and they had a car show there. And as I was walking by, a couple of dune buggies parked with the backdrop of the ocean. It was quite pretty. And people, not even all of the dune buggy owners really realized the history of the dune buggy. And Bruce Meyer, who made the Meyers-Manx dune buggy, passed away last year or so, I guess, after having a great long life. But it is my pleasure to have Winnie Meyers, a.k.a. Mrs. Manx, joining us on the program this morning. Winnie, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the Car Doctor program.
Good morning.
And one of the things, as you start to look through some history of Bruce especially, quite an interesting guy, right from, his days of saving someone's life because he was a great swimmer in World War II.
That's true. He saved a couple people, and just because he previously, when he was a child, I will call him a child, he was a lifeguard. So it was an ordinary thing for him to do, was to save people in distress swimming. So, yes, he did. He saved a pilot who later he managed to see after the pilot had been burned when his ship was kamikaze. And he was a fascinating person because of all the things that he had done previously. Yeah.
And the dune buggy was originally built so sort of him and his buddies could go surfing, right?
No, actually,
no.
No, because most places you can't take a dune buggy on the sand without some kind of permit. In the desert, yes, but not to go surfing. No, he just wanted fun. He wanted to go. He liked to explore, and he explored a lot of Baja before most people had, and that was basically the reason, was to go camping in it and have a lot of fun.
And he really was the first Baja 1000 person, right?
Well, actually, he helped to instigate that race. It hadn't started yet, and so there was no Baja 1000. And so he and his friend Ted Mangles took Meyers-Manx's, and they did a feasibility run first by going from I think they started actually in Ensenada and went to La Paz. And they, in his book, he has a book called The Call to Baja that tells all about that. But he and Ted had a discussion with a bunch of motorcycle guys up in Big Bear one time, and they expressed that they could beat the motorcycles, how eagles go. And so, at any rate, the next day, Ted came to Bruce and he says, I think we really can. I think because there was a motorcycle record. And so they decided that they would try and see how many hours it would take them to get from one point to the other. And they decided that they could do it in 30 hours, possibly. And the motorcycles, I think theirs was 45 or something like that. And because motorcycles can go faster, no doubt, and especially in tough terrain. However, they don't hold enough gas to be able to, and there are no gas stations down there at that time, Maybe you might find a rancho with a little bit of gas, maybe, but then, or they have to have it dropped by airplane or helicopter or something. So Ted and Bruce figured out how many gallons of gas they would need, and they carried it on their car, on Old Red. And they did the feasibility run in 30 hours, just like they thought they would. And so then in La Paz, they said, well, shall we do it? And they made the record run that beat the bikes from La Paz to Tijuana. And they beat them in over 4 hours. And so they knew they could do it. So then they put out a press release, because Bruce's wife at that time was connected with Road and Track magazine. And so they put out a press release all over the world. The Buggys beat bikes in Baja. And the phone started ringing, and people were saying, well, where's Baja? What kind of bikes are we talking about? What are these perambulator buggies? What are they? So, because it was something that wasn't out there much. So they were homemade buggies at that time, but nothing production. And so then the Ed Perlman, he's a florist in L.A., and he called and said, I think we need to form an organization. So together they gathered a lot of people, and they formed NORA, the National Off-Road Racing Association, which then started the race. And actually, Bruce did not finish in that first race, which is a big misnomer. His car broke. And so, but actually more than two. There were several, and you can read that in his book, because there are 3 books that he has that describe his life on the sea and his starting of the Meyers-Manx and what happened, the history of all of that, and then the call to Baja as well. So there are 3 books that tell all of this story, and I'm hoping that sometime in the near future we're trying to put together a possible movie.
It sounds like a movie in the making, absolutely. And there's a 4th book, which is your book. Why not? Tell us about the title of that. How did that come up?
Well, I wrote something here that it's easier just to read it. It says, why not? Why not became a way of life after connecting with Bruce Meyers, the artist, sailor, boat builder, veteran, surfer, musician, inventor, and of course the inventor of fiberglass dune buggy, the Meyers-Manx. My book was written by myself after 40 years together. I was wife number 6 and exploring my background. And there are meeting and some of the trials and tribulations restarting the Meyers-Manx company, as well as creating the Manx Club, which is still current today. And in my book, you're invited to peek into the soul of the Meyers life of why not. I always say that I was a tightly wound woman before I met him, but then I loosened up a bit.
Well, certainly you rattled off, a builder of boats, a builder of dune buggies, an artist, a musician. If you had to put the title of Renaissance man on somebody, it certainly sounds like it would be him.
Well, I think you're right.
And you mentioned surfer. When one of the reasons that we're chatting is there's going to be an event here in a couple of weeks on Cape Cod called Manx on Cape Cod, and one of the stops of the tour is going over to Factory 5 Racing, where they build, among other things, Cobra replicas and all kinds of various things. And the guy who owns the place, Dave Smith, is a surfer. And he says, no matter where I am, I tend to surf once a week. And I said, for the exercise, and he said, the mental exercise. It gives me a time to be able to go out and surf and kind of clear my mind and come up with more ideas. Was that part of what surfing was to Bruce?
I believe so. I think that anybody who surfs, I've kind of heard the same thing, that they, it is, we have club members that are surfers too. And I know of one that he surfs every day if he can. And he would say the same thing, I'm sure. Yes.
And you were the one that started the Manx Club, right?
Yes. Oh, we did it together, but Bruce was what I would call the figurehead. Mm-hmm. And I was the worker bee. But we seemed to do well in that capacity. And so I think that was probably my forte, I didn't realize it until about that time. And I would think by the time we started that, I was probably 50 years old and discovered that, I was a whole different person underneath that shy person that I had started with. And it opened up a new world for me to organize this. That's really my forte, is organization. And I'm so proud of it because we started with chasing people down on the street and with a buggy hanging off the back of their motorhome or their truck or whatever, mm-hmm. and on their way to the desert, because where I live now, in Valley Center, most people in the San Diego area at all have to come through Valley Center to get to the desert. And so at the grocery store, you see a lot of cars with buggies hanging off the back of their car on their way to the desert. And so we would just put a note on their car saying, join the club and join the fun. And that's how we started the club, with nobody to start with, but just, chasing people down. And now we have over 6,000 members internationally.
And I think that's one of the most interesting things, too, about the Meyers Manx dune buggy, and maybe dune buggies a little bit in general, is how worldwide they are. I always think of dune buggies as kind of a California thing, but you see them all around the world, and you see Manx dune buggies all around the world, and I think it's so fascinating the way it happened and the culture that goes along with it.
Well, the club culture, at least for sure, is inspirational. Because basically we're a great big family, an international family. Because Bruce and I, putting this club together, we were able to go to France, I think 6 times, to England a couple of times, to Australia a couple of times. And there are people there with buggies as well in all of those places and more. And they're just the same as we are. We have relationships, the family, they're our family. And I still feel that today. And I think it's just the most wonderful feeling. It doesn't matter what your economic status is. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, or you can be a bum on the street. It doesn't matter. And, however, you can also be 18 or 81. It's just, it crosses all those, I don't know what you call them.
Demographics, I guess, and
right.
and you look at dune buggies, and you look at a Manx dune buggy, and it is a classic style. And I think when I've had the opportunity to talk to car designers, and sometimes they admit that they tend to go in the wrong direction. They look at what's current at the time, and then they find out a couple years later whatever they built looks dated. But you look at a dune buggy, and if it's a early model, if it still makes people smile, but the lines of it just appeal to people. And I think it's that classic style that really makes the Manx buggies look so good all the time.
True. And Bruce, being an artist first, excuse me, I have COPD, unfortunately. Never smoked, but I've got it. But at any rate, because he was an artist first, then he he had a great sense of design, and simplicity is much more difficult to do than complexity. And I think that's part of it. Also, proportion. He was better at proportion than most, and he knew how to make that car speak to you. It just says fun.
Does, absolutely. And one of the stories I heard years and years ago was the rear fender design was designed in such a way to hold a beer.
Well, I think it's the front fender.
front fender. It was, and I don't remember where I heard that, 30 years ago from somebody. They said, no, the fender's flat right here because that was meant so you could put a beer down while you were sitting, standing talking to somebody. So yeah. So I always thought that was kind of a fun thing. And recently the company was sold. Are you happy with what's going on?
Well, I think that they've been censored in the beginning about getting their EV car out, and now that they're getting along with that, and they have a new CEO that just came in, and she is wonderful, and I think that they're going to be okay.
Mm. Yeah, it's sort of funny. I was talking to somebody one day, and they built an EV something or other, and I said why, and they said, well, we just felt we had to do it, but we're probably not going to sell any, and it may have been the guys over at Factory 5 Racing, and they're like, at the end of the day, there's going to be EVs and there's going to be the electric vehicle culture, but really for us, we like the idea of having a gasoline engine. And one of the vehicles that I think the new company built is they're using some kind of crazy radial engine or something, some 3-cylinder radial engine, which sounds pretty unique too. So, but yeah, I saw an advertisement for the kit, and it does look like it's kind of staying pretty true to the original Manx.
It is. It's the kit itself. Actually, it is. They just remastered it. Bruce, though he measured everything properly when he first made these cars, and he he didn't have CAD drawing. He wouldn't have known how to use it anyway. However, because he was 94 when he passed, and by the way, I'll correct you that it was 2021 when he passed, and his last name has an S on the end. It's Bruce Meyers, not to be confused with Bruce Meyer, who is a different person in L.A. with a huge car collection at the Peterson Museum. So, we always say he was the rich one. And the reason I say that is because if you read my book, you'll see that I talk about how we started the company back up again after how many years, and that we had no money. We just had 2 cars, and we didn't even have a house at the time. We were renting, and but we persevered, and actually we stayed in business. We went into business. We stayed in business through the big crash of the century.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just because we decided to keep it small. Bruce had a huge company when he was there in the 60s, and it was a huge nut to crack every month, and because he had lots of employees and lots going on. So we just formed this company right here out of our home, and people would say they would come to see us if they could, and they would drive up the dirt road that comes to our house, and there's a great big bump in the little hills just before you get here. And people will say, yeah, typical. It just sounds like Bruce, to live on a rugged dirt road, right?
Well, I mean, it certainly sounds like he was an amazing person. It sounds like you're an amazing person. And 40 years of life with him must have been extraordinarily fun.
It was, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's
go ahead. Yeah, why not? Exactly. And you're a singer as well?
I was.
You
Right
was?
now I can't.
Yeah.
I can talk. But because of a boyfriend before meeting Bruce, I had seen him around. I lived on Balboa Island, and I had a boyfriend that came to me and said and sang a little bit in guitar, and he sang to me Crosby, Stills and Nash's "Teach Your Children" song, and I brazenly said, I could write a better song than that. I was raised in a family of singers, and at any rate, so I wrote a few songs, and I actually recorded them only for posterity. And then the guy who recorded these songs put them on a tape that was a great big reel-to-reel, probably 12 inches across, and I didn't have anything to play it on, so I never even heard the recording until 30 years later.
Wow.
But that's just, in my book, it tells how we met, and that's how I met Bruce, because I needed an accompaniment, a better accompaniment than myself, because I played very little guitar. But so that's how we ended up together. And so I put that CD I put in the back of my book, and you can listen to the CD as you read. It's very short, only 5 songs, but I can't sing it all anymore. So
the book is also a love story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And if people want your book or the other 3 books, how do people find them? Are they on Amazon? What do people do?
No, I have my website called booksbymeyers.com, and you can order that through that. And I also usually bring them to events, so I will have them at the event that's coming up, because I will be flying out for that. And that event, by the way, is September 5th through 8th. And I do give a discounted rate when I bring them to events, so if you don't have your book, you can get it there.
I know a lot of people who have signed up, at least I've been told this, a lot of people who have signed up to be part of the event are listening this morning, so I'm sure they're going to be very interested. And you have some connection to Cape Cod too, right?
I do. My first husband, because I had 2 marriages, he and I lived on the Cape for 7 years.
So
I will be trying to see some old haunts.
There you go, and maybe you can go someplace where you had a drink one day and go visit a little bit and do a little reminiscing or something. It should be fun. Well, Winnie, I want to thank you for getting up early, because it's your 3 hours. You're 3 hours behind us, and joining us on the Car Doctor radio program. It's been an absolute pleasure. And again, one more time, for the website to find out more information, because this program also becomes a podcast, so it will stay around forever. So what's the website again for the books?
It's Books by Meyers, MEYERS.com.
Perfect. Winnie, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and joining us on the Car Doctor program here in Massachusetts.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure.
All right, take care. Bye-bye now. Why don't we take a break, pay some bills? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
Start your day off right with brunch at the Old Hitching Post in Hanson. The Old Hitching Post offers a full buffet brunch every Sunday from 10 to 1. Fill up on all your favorites like eggs and bacon, sausage, home fries, French toast casserole, mac and cheese, homemade hash, fresh seafood, rice, veggies, fresh fruit, quiche, yogurt parfaits, pastries, ham, omelets, eggs Benedict, and more. The Old Hitching Post Sunday brunch from 10 to 1 at 48 Spring Street, Route 58 in Hanson. Online at oldhp.com. That's OLDEHP.com.
All the excitement and fun you remember is waiting for you at the 156th Marshfield Fair. The food, the games, the rides, exhibits, and unforgettable entertainment. Be amazed by live glass blowing. Enjoy live music, illusionists, and the zoo show. Arts and crafts, horticultural exhibits, and the bees and bunnies. And of course, don't forget the Demolition Derby. For information and a schedule of events, visit marshfieldfair.org. The 156th Marshfield Fair, August 16th through the 25th, Route 3A in Marshfield.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24-hour 7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
This is my time.
Hey guys, it's Lexi James.
And we're Crier Creek.
Twilight Showcase Radio, hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James.
Tune into Twilight Showcase Radio Sundays on 95.9 WATD and 95.9 WATD.com.
Search for Twilight Showcase on Facebook.
And visit twilightshowcase.org.
Twilight Showcase, tonight from 8 to 10 on 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. Let's talk about the car that got me around a little bit. And if you want to join us, our phone number is 781-837-4900, 781-837-4900, and you can give us a call and chat about whatever's on your mind about cars. We'll talk about a bunch of the emails that came in this week and last night. In fact, we seem to get a lot of emails on Saturday afternoon and late Saturday night. People must be up late, and they all of a sudden have questions about their car. But the car that got me around was one that sort of surprised me. It's the Buick Envista, and it's a compact front-wheel drive only crossover SUV. It kind of represents Buick's attempt to blend a kind of a, I hate to use the word more modern style, but much more stylish than sort of a boxy little SUV. And they add some practicality and a ton of modern technology. And I was talking with somebody the other day, and we were talking about how small cars are selling a little bit better these days. Well, one of the reasons is big cars are expensive. Big SUVs are expensive. And people like features, and I remember there was a time I got in a compact truck and I was shocked that there was a vanity mirror on the driver's side visor. It wasn't lit or anything, it was just a mirror. And I was like, wow, look at that, they put a vanity mirror in. And now if you don't have, lighted vanity mirrors and heated seats and heated steering wheel in any car, people wonder what's going on. And I think this is a good example of this thing has just about everything in it. So the Envista brings several notable features, and I think design is certainly one of them. It's a very stylish looking vehicle. It combines some good lines with a sporty profile. The interior's well done. The exterior has this, bold front grille and LED headlights, and it does have this sort of European style coupe silhouette. So it sort of looks a little like a coupe, as a proper coupe should only have 2 doors, but this has 4. But it has this kind of, if you saw a shadow of it, you'd say, oh, it's a 2-door coupe. It isn't. It's a 4-door. But I think it makes it stand out against some of the other smaller vehicles, and even maybe its stablemate, the Chevy Trax. The interior is well done, comfortable, high quality materials, good attention to detail. And I think the attention to detail was lacking in a lot of Buicks for a while. You look around and stuff didn't look finished around the edge of the seats and things like that. I think they did a really nice job on this. The seats are well cushioned, supportive. I found it a pretty pleasant driving experience. Some drivers may find the seat cushions a little on the short side. My wife, as a passenger, felt that was the case. Way better than the last compact SUV that I drove from GM. I found this was comfortable enough that I would be willing to drive this, hundreds of miles and still feel pretty comfortable. The rear seats offer decent space for a vehicle this size, with enough legroom and headroom to accommodate adults pretty comfortably, although because it is a sloping roof line, if you're really tall, you may find headroom a bit on the tight side. Cargo area is also pretty good. 20 cubic feet behind the rear seats. That expands to 42 cubic feet with the rear seats folded. The infotainment system is centered around a pretty user-friendly touchscreen. It integrates Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So if you have a smartphone, pretty easily connected. And when I road test vehicles, I always try to connect my phone to the vehicle to see how easy it is. What's it want to do? Are all the features, can I play my stored music on it? Can I, does it read text messages, for instance, which I prefer it doesn't. I try to stay focused on my driving, even though my wife would probably disagree with that. But overall, I'd say it's a pretty well put together infotainment system that seems to work pretty quickly. Sometimes there's a lag in some of these systems. This seems to work pretty well. So what makes the Buick Envista go? Well, there's only one engine, and it's the size of a motorcycle engine. It's a 1.2 liter. So, old Honda Goldwings were 1,200 cc's. It's a 1.2 liter, 3-cylinder. Yep, it's 3 cylinders. It has a turbocharger. It develops 137 horsepower, which doesn't sound like a lot, considering, the Dodge Hellcat is 707 or 750 or whatever it is these days. But it's 137 horsepower, but it's 162 pound-feet of torque. So it feels more responsive. When you're, kind of pulling away from a light, feels like it's got more power than 137 horsepower. If you're kind of cruising out in the highway or you're merging onto traffic and you don't really have your, foot into it, when you first go to accelerate, it feels like it's got a good burst of power, because horsepower is what gets you, up to your high speed. Torque is what gets you moving. It can run out of horsepower a little bit, but, merging onto the highway, yeah, no particular issues there. It does get a little raucous sounding, I suppose, when, you put your foot to the floor and you're merging up to 65 or 70 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour like Jesse drives, either way. The combination of the turbocharger, I think, and the gearing all give you a decent balance of power and fuel efficiency. The engine, certainly more than adequate. It's not a sports car. Suspension delivers above average ride and handling for a small car. Buick equipped the Envista with a suite of standard and optional safety features. And I keep saying this all the time. Every car seems to have everything in it these days. Adaptive cruise control, automatic emergency braking, which is going to be standard, lane departure warning, blind spot monitoring, all this stuff. When the average car today is in the $50,000 range, this Buick Envista, which I can't imagine could have had anything more jammed in it, better interior, high quality sound system, heated seats, heated steering, everything, all the technology. $29,070 was the sticker price on the car. And in these days, $29,000 is a lot of money, but it seems like a bargain compared with the average new vehicle being in the $50,000 range. So, if you're interested in a compact SUV or crossover style vehicle, and 4-wheel drive isn't a deal breaker because maybe you don't go out in the wintertime. Maybe, I have a all-wheel drive Hyundai. You've heard me talk about it before. I've had it for now what is amounting to 6 years, I guess. Doesn't have a lot of miles on it, 35,000 miles on it. But one of the reasons I bought all-wheel drive was at the time I was commuting from Abington to Providence every day, and we didn't do snow days. We had to go to work, and I wanted all-wheel drive. And I also had this little cottage on Cape Cod. So there was always a reason to bring stuff from one house to the other, and that stuff could have been furniture, it could have been a table saw, other tools. You never knew what it was going to be. And I wanted an SUV for that practicality, being able to carry stuff, but I also wanted all-wheel drive to be able to get out of the driveway and drive the 50-odd miles to work every morning. And now I don't really need all-wheel drive. I hopefully have avoided any snowstorms and not going to need all-wheel drive. So my next car will probably be front-wheel drive, and the Hyundai will probably be my car that I keep. Well, if the tin shack doesn't blow away in a hurricane, it'll be the car that I keep in Florida, and maybe the Volkswagen that we keep there will end up coming up here. We don't know yet, so we don't know what we're going to do. It's our poor old Volkswagen that I bought for $1,000, I don't know, 3 years ago now, is just 3 years older now. So it's a 15-year-old car that is suffering from 15-year-old problems, and it was only supposed to last a year or so until I retired, and we were going to have one car here and one car in Florida. So when we got to Florida, we'd have two cars, and we got back up here, we'd have one, and we thought that would be fine, but I thought wrong. Apparently, we need two cars, according to my wife. So we have this little Volkswagen, and we keep it here. But it needs a new convertible top. The convertible top is terrible, and it isn't worth. It's $4,000 to replace the convertible top on that. So enough about that. But anyway, if you're thinking about a small, practical little SUV, I don't know. Go look at the Buick Envista. I think they did a good job. It's well-rounded, combines good design, practical features, lots of safety features. The 1.2-liter three-cylinder engine, certainly able to do the job, so maybe go take a look at it. Buick Envista. Next week we'll be talking about the Honda Pilot, and it's something called the Black Edition, which is sort of interesting because it's not really that black. They blacked out the grille, and they blacked out the wheels. So it has a little bit of a more sporty appeal to it, but we have that coming up as well. If you would like to join us, our phone number 781-837-4900 is how you get through and talk to us. And one of the guests we have coming up in the coming weeks, and I think it's mid-September, we're going to be talking with Brenda Priddy. She is one of the original car spy photographers. There was this guy, Jim Dunn, who I think if you were ever reading Popular Mechanics 10, 20, 40 years ago, Jim Dunn had every spy photo. And I swear he had, a filter with a chain link fence in the front of it because all his photos looked like they were behind a chain link fence. Well, Brenda sort of followed in his footsteps. And as I recall, she happened to see a car that she had never seen before, lightly camouflaged, took a picture of it, sent it to someplace, Road and Track, expecting to get like a T-shirt or something in return for sending the photo in, and they actually paid her for it. And she was like, maybe there's money in this. So she is sort of retired from that, but she's got an interesting story to tell, and she's also quite the traveler, and heads out to Cuba fairly often for the sort of car culture in Cuba as well. So we have her coming up in a couple of weeks. So that should be a fun interview to talk with her about that. Some of the questions I got this week and got just this last night, in fact, like I said, it seems like I get a fair amount of questions that just sort of show up in the middle of the night. I kind of wonder about, people that do this. Somebody wrote to me, they have a 2013 Volvo XC70, which they say they love. It has 136,000 miles on it. Last year, the check engine light came on with the dreaded P0420 code, catalytic converter efficiency below threshold, bank 1. The recommended solution is to replace the catalytic converter and oxygen sensor. They took it to a Volvo dealership, but they said they couldn't really find anything wrong. Told me they even contacted Volvo of North America for advice. They still couldn't find anything. They reset the light. It was good until this past January. So no light came on. And then same code, made an appointment with the dealership. Day before, light went off on its own. They canceled the appointment. Light came back on the same day, same code. No symptoms. Car performs well, no lack of power. Any suggestion or advice would be helpful. Catalytic converter for this car was quoted at $4,000. which they said, ouch. And he was good enough to say cheers at the end. Yeah, it probably needs a catalytic converter. It's 11 years old. For one reason or another, it's probably starting to fail, unless there's something really weird, unless there's a very slight exhaust leak or something. But when I looked up this code, and I looked up the actual fixes of this code, and a lot of times when I look up in different databases on particular fixes, it will it'll show like 4 or 5 different things. Oxygen sensor, temp sensor, exhaust leak, catalytic converter, and it'll say that of the 3,000 repairs that were performed, 1,500 were catalytic converter, 500 were oxygen sensors. You get the idea. In this particular code on this particular car, only catalytic converters. That's the only thing they show as a fix. So probably that's what it is. 4,000 sounds a little pricey. I priced out the converter at about 2,000. It's a couple hours of labor. Maybe they're putting oxygen sensors in it at the same time. Probably wouldn't hurt. I'm thinking more like 3,000, but 4,000 at the dealer. I don't know what the dealer's labor rate is at this point, but maybe that's part of it. But it's I've seen labor rates now. This person has a Massachusetts phone number, so they're somewhere here in Massachusetts. But I've seen some city, especially like New Jersey and New York, dealerships are charging $250, $280 an hour now, which sounds ridiculous to me, but I guess that's what they need to charge. Somebody else wrote to me and they want to change their transaxle fluid. And I misread this, and they said, do I need to use Honda's 75-85 gear oil, or can I use something off the shelf like 75-90? And do you know what the capacity is of the transaxle? And I guess I hadn't had enough coffee this morning, and I automatically assumed they were talking about the rear differential fluid, which is what everybody asks about if they own a Honda CR-V or an Acura RDX. Transaxle fluid, not such a common thing to change, but this person wants to change it. So I said, oh, no, use the dual pump fluid or Acura's fluid, which is the same. Then they said, I'm sorry, I told you the wrong thing. No, they told me the right thing. I just didn't read it right. The differential fluid is one thing. The transaxle fluid is something else. Yes, Honda and Acura do recommend a 75-85 gear oil. It takes less than a quart. So even though you're kind of paying twice as much for Acura's special gear oil, it only takes like 0.6 of a quart. As much as I don't like paying more for something than I have to, yeah, it probably makes sense to pay $20 instead of $10 and put the Acura Honda specified fluid in. Kind of makes sense. Somebody else has a Honda, and it's a 2014 Accord Coupe, and they say that it sings on the highway, which I thought was sort of interesting. They say, hey, car doctor, since I bought my 2014 Honda LX Coupe with 44,000 miles on it now, it's always had a slight front tire sing at highway speeds. There's been a slight pattern of wear on the outside of the front tires. Otherwise, I get reasonable wear. I rotated frequently to even the wear. I've replaced the tires with Cooper at a professional wheel alignment. Hunter, he was very specific about what kind of alignment machine. And at a reputable tire shop, but they still sing. Any opinions? It's probably not the tires, since you replaced the tires and it didn't go away. It's probably the transmission or the differential. there's probably a slight gear noise you're hearing. And what I would do is really try to identify it as close as you can. So if you're out on the highway, which is where they say they get it, I guess, I would go out and sort of kind of cruise around it, pick a speed, 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, and see if you can kind of modulate the sound by speeding up and slowing down. And not really speeding up, just easy on the accelerator. Just put a little bit of stress on the accelerator, so you're adding power to the transmission. Take your foot off. See if it changes. If you're noticing a change in sound, if the singing changes, it's gear related. And I'm willing to bet it's either something in the transmission or something in the differential that has been there for 10 years, so it's not causing any harm, but it's probably just, and honestly, if you brought this car back to the dealer in 2014, they would probably say, oh, yeah, it's within tolerance, I bet they would say. But that's what I bet it is. I bet it's something inside the transmission, gears that don't fit right. This one was sort of interesting because they have another Honda. Look at that. Honda Ridgeline, 45,000 miles. Original Michelins had plenty of tread. Sounds like the Michelins that were on the Volkswagen that I replaced. Plenty of tread, but they're starting to dry rot. Would you recommend replacement? And what brand? Also, should the pressure sensors be done at the same time? I know it will be expensive, but it seems to make sense. I'm trying to keep the vehicle all Honda, as I am skeptical about aftermarket parts unless you can advise a good brand. Appreciate a little direction on this. And P.S., my dad worked at AAA for over 40 years. Don't know his dad, but I'm sure there's other people who do. Yeah, I think, the Michelins I had on this Volkswagen, yeah, the tread was great. I think they still had 630 seconds of tread, but they were all starting to dry rot around the edges. Enough where it wasn't terrible, but I didn't want my wife driving on those tires. So I replaced them with the cheapest tire that I could find. That is not what I would normally do. I would, as people who know me and know the radio program, know I can be cheap. But I think it's important to use pretty good tires. Tires I got actually have a pretty decent rating. But if I planned on keeping a car for a long time, those are not the tires I would keep on this car. But I don't plan on keeping it because at some point the convertible top's just going to fail to function, or it's going to get a hole in it, or it's going to leak. It already leaked. The rear window just about fell out of it, which is held in place with a bunch of silicone caulking at this point. But it doesn't leak, so it's all good. I would go with a quality tire. The Michelin served you well for 10 years. Maybe go with Michelin's again. Goodyear's quality tire. Nokians. I have Nokians on my Hyundai. So far, so good. I like them. They do a good job. Kumho's, tire that we never heard of before, seems to be a good tire. BF Goodrich, under the Michelin umbrella, BF Goodrich, good tires. At one time in my life, I actually worked for a tire store that was pretty much all BF Goodrich quality tires. Lesser known brands, Cooper, Kelly Springfield, they're all made by major tire companies, but always my thought is that you're driving down the road, you blow out a tire, you pull into a tire store, and you have a Waterfall Eco tire, the ones on the Volkswagen. They're going to go, we can't match this. We've never even heard of these tires before. Probably you ought to buy two. And with the Ridgeline, it's all-wheel drive. It's important to keep all the tires the same. I would think long and hard about putting a good quality brand name tire on the car. As far as the tire sensors would go, the OEM, the original tire sensors are not terribly expensive. According to what I see, depending on what model, If it's an RTX, RTS, or RTL, they're $56.38 each. Really no labor. Well, they get the tires off. One nut, put them back on. If it's an RT, they're only $29 a piece. If it's a Sport, $56.38. So, or if it's an SE, they're the same. So again, not a lot. They're gonna recalibrate the sensors when you get new tires anyway. So, maybe add a little bit extra because they have to wake everything up and get it all to work. But not much. I would, if you're going to keep this, which it sounds like you're gonna. It's 10 years old. It's got low miles on it. It's a Honda. You want to keep it all Honda. Go with the Honda sensors and replace them. And I think all should be good in your world. Why don't we take another break? Phones are super quiet today. 781-837-4900. If you want to give us a call, phone lines are open. 781-837-4900. We'll be right back.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24-hour-7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Are you dreaming of a home that exudes quality and craftsmanship? Hi, I'm Sheldon Stewart of Stewart Painting, and we can turn those dreams into reality. At Stewart Painting, we specialize in both interior and exterior carpentry, ensuring that every detail of your space reflects your personal style. Let our team of professional carpenters take care of all your needs, from rot repair and intricate trim work to low-maintenance siding. Our expert carpenters have the skills and experience to bring your vision to life. And if you're tired of repainting and staining your deck every year, we can install low-maintenance decking for year-round enjoyment. We take pride in every detail, from the initial call to the final nail. With Stewart Painting, you're not just getting a service, you're investing in excellence. Visit us at stewartpaint.com to schedule an estimate and to hear about our financing options. Or call us at 508-362-8023. With offices in Hyannis and Hingham, with over 40 years of excellence, Stewart Painting. Expect the best.
Start your Sunday off right with brunch at the Old Hitching Post in Hanson. The Old Hitching Post offers a full buffet brunch every Sunday from 10 to 1. Fill up on all your favorites like eggs and bacon, sausage, home fries, French toast casserole, mac and cheese, homemade hash, fresh seafood, rice, veggies, fresh fruit, quiche, yogurt parfaits, pastries, ham, omelets, eggs Benedict, and more. The Old Hitching Post Sunday brunch from 10 to 1 at 48 Spring Street, Route 58 in Hanson. Online at oldhp.com. That's OLDEHP.com.
Hey there, folks. It's Quinn Kelly reminding you to tune in Sunday night at 5 for the South Shore's first voice in sports talk radio, The Sports Exchange. Unmatched coverage of local high school action, as well as a relatable voice on all things Boston Pro Sports. We've got you covered live at 5 every Sunday night. Have a question for our host, missed last week's show, or just want to share a great sports story? You can find us on Twitter at SE on WATD. But remember, mark your calendar, folks, and we'll see you Sunday night at 5 for the Sports Exchange on 95.9 WATD.
Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD, your South Shores radio station. Here's a couple of weird ones that I've gotten lately. Person just bought a Mazda CX-30, brand new. I looked through the whole car and the owner's manual, and it doesn't have an old-fashioned 12-volt cigarette lighter plug, but only a USB-C plug. Why wasn't the world happy with USB? They had to come up with a compact version of that plug. I have a few portable electronics that require the classic 12-volt plug, and one of them is a portable tire pressure pump. What options do I have? Is there such a thing as a USB-C to 12-volt converter? I'm not looking to do any custom wiring. Yes, there is. You can go on whatever, Amazon or something, and you can find a USB-C to 12-volt plug just for this particular reason. But I wouldn't use it to run your air compressor. The air compressor is going to pull too much amperage. For that, I would go buy another adapter, which connects directly to the top of the battery, has a cigarette-style plug at the end, probably has a 10-amp fuse or something in it. These little air compressors pull a lot of amperage, probably close to 7 or 8 amps. That USB-C it probably has a 5-amp fuse behind it. You're going to blow the fuse if you plug in an air compressor to it. So buy 2 different adapters. One if you have something like a navigation system or something else that you're running off of, running that doesn't require a lot of amperage but has a 12-volt plug. You can probably also go in the opposite direction. You can probably get some sort of adapter to go the other way, but either way, it's the same adapter. So again, buy 2 adapters. I think that's the best thing to do. This is the second time I've heard this, that no 12-volt plugs in that style, like cigarette lighter plugs. And if they do have them, they have a little warning on them, 5 amps only or something. So, AM radios. You buy a Tesla, you're not listening to AM. Somebody else wrote to me, and this one I had to do a little bit of research. The person is, their son is looking to buy and I'm going to say it's pronounced Cano, C-A-N-0-0, C-A-N-O-O, Cano electric car. They are pretty cool looking. They're sort of modernish, futuristic looking electric vehicle. They want to do it for light duty delivery, maybe flower shops, something, food, I don't know, something like that. And they want to know what I know about it and whether they think I should buy it. First off, it's never a good idea to buy the first year of anything, and even though the company's been around for a little while, they haven't really delivered much. They haven't delivered, I think they've delivered a half a dozen examples to some post office, and they have a pretty big order pending for like one of these last mile delivery companies, like FedEx delivers it to someplace, and then the someplace delivers it the last mile or 2 to your house. I would want to see more production before I did anything. Go buy a used Chevy Bolt. They're $15,000 to $18,000. They all have new batteries in them. It looks like a good buy. Hey, that music means, speaking of goodbye, we have to say goodbye. Until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car, and thank you to Winnie Meyers for joining us on the Car Doctor program. And if you do see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.